Hey everyone, James Reeves with TFBTV. Today on TFBTV, we've got a very simple fantasy concept here. We're talking about 5 guns that need to be resurrected, and not just resurrected. These are guns that have gone away for one reason or another, and by one reason or another, I mean usually because they weren't profitable. Guns don't go away because they're selling like hotcakes. Guns don't go to die because they're too popular. Usually, there's something wrong with them that prevents them from being sold, or they're no longer profitable, or they just flat out get banned. So not only do these guns need to be resurrected, but they need a little freaky remix. I will be your personal TFBTV T-Pain today as I discuss these guns and maybe what could have been done to improve them, or if they come back, if somebody wants to bring them back, which I would love, what they could do to maybe make them a little bit more popular. I'm gonna start with number 5. I was reluctant to put this on here because I know what kind of freaks this one's gonna bring out. You people, you're like fanatics. That's why they call you the cult of the P7. The HK P7 needs to come back. You've got the HK P7, you've got the HK P7 M8, P7 M13. There are several derivatives of this gun, even a Jubilee edition, which had like nil wood grips on it and like gold inlay. It was totally garbage, but P7 guys eat it up. These P7 guys, man, they're well heeled, they're fanatical. You could engrave in platinum Mickey Mouse on the side of one of these guns, and these guys would throw 9 grand at you for it. It's insane. The P7 was number 3 in what's called the Munich Trio. After the Munich Olympic slaughter, which I believe was 1972, you had the German government coming out and issuing this new solicitation for 9mm single stack pistols, and that led to the creation of the Walther P5, the SIG P6, and the H&K P7. Of those 3 guns, far and away, the most devoted following is to the P7, and that's because it is a pretty remarkable pistol, especially at the time. You're talking about a gun that doesn't have a locking barrel. It doesn't have like a tilting barrel or a linked barrel. What it uses to delay the rearward motion of the slide is actually a piston. There is a piston under the dust cover just in front of the trigger, and it's a very simple piston design. So this allows the gun to be very simple, at least from the piston up, in that it's a straight blowback with a fixed barrel. It allows it also to be very accurate. It's also got a squeeze cocker, and that is not a sex move. It's actually this big lever that you see in front of the gun there around the grip. You squeeze that, and it takes a whopping 15 pounds of force to squeeze that SOB, but that essentially acts as a safety. And what that does is it cocks the striker. And in fact, if you have the slide open, kind of a cool feature, you squeeze on the squeeze cocker and it'll drop your slide too. It not only acts as a safety, but it also speeds up your gun handling. I believe New Jersey police were issued this gun, and there are stories out there, I don't know if it's true or if it's urban legend, that there were cops that had their guns taken from them and the perps couldn't figure out how to use the squeeze cocker, so it saved these guys' lives. So in a way, it acts like the first action of a double action trigger. It's like cocking the hammer. You squeeze that grip, you apply 15 pounds of pressure, that striker's cocked, and all it takes is about 4 pounds of pressure on the trigger, and you have this excellent single stage break. The H&K P7 is also very reliable. Not only does it use this simple straight blowback operation that aids in reliability, but it also has a fluted chamber that aids in extraction, and it prevents shell casings from getting stuck to chamber walls. But let's talk about the problems. First of all, the thing was expensive as all get out. Even back in the day when they were in regular production, if you could find like a PSP, like one that had a heel mag release, or a standard P7, not the P7 M8 that had the button mag release, typical HK in that if you have to ask how much it costs, you don't deserve to own it, you poor bastard. I had one and I got rid of it. I mean, the thing weighs almost 2 pounds. It's 28 ounces, but it only holds 8 rounds of ammo. So it holds basically like the same amount of ammo as a Smith & Wesson Shield, but weighs about twice as much and then costs as much as 10 Smith & Wesson Shields. So it's kind of impractical. No doubt it's cool. No doubt it has a great trigger, but you can do a lot better for a lot less money in terms of a carry gun. So how are we gonna remix this one? Fortunately, somebody's done that already. TFBTV, the Firearm Blog TV, this dude, Matthew Chapdelaine, hopefully I didn't butcher that. He sent us this concept that he had back in 2016, and this thing is pretty freaking cool. This is kind of his reimagination of what the H&K P7 should be, and he calls it the P9M8. As you can see, it's got a very ergonomic and simplified grip made out of polymer. That's going to reduce the weight tremendously, considering that the original P7 uses an all steel frame that is heavy as piss. He's also eliminated the squeeze cocker, which is going to make the gun a little bit cheaper to manufacture and a little bit more simple. Also, with modern striker fired pistols like the VP9 already having pretty good triggers on them, maybe you don't need the squeeze cocker to get that super sweet P7M8 trigger anymore anyhow. He's even incorporated, for full authenticity, the European style trigger guard mag release. With the polymer, you're going to reduce the weight, you're going to reduce the cost, you're going to get rid of the squeeze cocker, and you're still going to have all the good parts of a practical P7. Now moving on to my number 4. This is a bit of a controversial pick, as my number 4s usually are. And the reason why this one's controversial is it can't really be resurrected because it was never introduced to the public to begin with. Magpul, please, I'm begging you. I mean, I'm hoping 100,000 people are gonna watch this video, and I'm willing to say this in front of 100,000 people, 1,000,000 people. I'm embarrassed right now, but this is me begging you publicly on television. Well, not really television, shit tier television like YouTube, begging you, please, if you're not gonna make the fucking FMG9, let somebody else do it. No, I don't know what's going on with the FMG9. I don't know if it's proprietary, if Magpul owns it or what, but all I know is it's freaking rad. The Magpul FMG9, FMG9 stands for Folding Machine Gun 9. Essentially what they did is they took a Glock, they made it so you could fold it, full conceal. They're doing that now, full conceal. Why don't you guys get on this? But they made it so you could fold this Glock into like this lunchbox of death, as I like to call it. So it looks like there you are, you're just walking the dog and you're carrying a lunchbox, a black lunchbox for some reason with a flashlight on it. At night, some guy tries to jack you, boom, gun Decepticon opens up and you blast this guy in the face. That's what I want. And I cannot get it because for some reason it has not been made. My good buddy Clay, AKA the Mil-Spec Monkey, actually took a video at SHOT Show years ago when Magpul had the FMG9 on display. I was full chub, so excited for this thing. I knew it was gonna come out. I was like, I don't care how much it costs. I know I'm gonna have to get a tax stamp for it. It's gonna be an SBR. I don't think that that would stop anybody who wants this thing bad enough like I do. But here's the video from SHOT Show with a little demo there. So pros of this gun, it's awesome. Cons, literally nothing other than I can't buy it. Remix, make it so I can buy it. The end. For number 3, just for the sake of conversation and get this damn video moving, Ruger P89 reintroduction. Needs to happen. The Ruger P89 is like the slightly more advanced successor to the Ruger P85. The Ruger P85 was originally developed as a replacement alternative for the US military's 1984 Joint Service Small Arms program to replace the 1911. They wanted a higher capacity and more reliable 9mm. Duh. The P85 met all the requirements for the program and, perhaps most importantly, met the 20,000 round threshold for durability. Legend has it that the P Series performed admirably, but the Beretta M9 of course came out on top. In 1992, the P85 was revised and reintroduced as the Ruger P89 to the civilian market, and it had some limited success in law enforcement and military circles. If you like the SIG P226, I believe you will love the Ruger P89. It's a little bit rowdier, a little bit less couth, but all in all, a good time. And I'm pretty sure that somebody at Ruger was looking over SIG's shoulder and copying their homework whenever they made the Ruger P85 and P89, because there are more than a coincidental amount of design cue similarities between the two guns. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because the SIG P226 in my mind is perhaps the best alloy frame service pistol out there. The Ruger P85 and P89 could properly be called a Wonder 9. You're talking about a high capacity double stack 9mm that's reliable. I've got a SIG P226 right here, and as you can see dimensionally from the top, they're almost identical. They both have 4.5-inch full-size barrels. They both weigh 32 ounces, like almost to the 10th of an ounce. They're both metal frame steel slide guns. Double action, single action trigger system. They even use the same style locking system, even though the Ruger actually uses a 1911 style barrel-ish. The Ruger P89 uses its own proprietary 15-round flush fit magazines, but Mecgar, who is the OEM manufacturer for a lot of different companies, makes a 17-round flush fit that not only looks good, but is 100% reliable. Best of all, when they came out, $300. It was also a little bit ahead of its time in that it had an ambi mag release. I mean, when I think about it, I think of the Ruger P89 series as like the Macho Man Randy Savage of guns. It's rugged, it's tough, it may have done steroids, it's 90s as f, and it's also dead. I don't know if it was just a business decision by Ruger. A lot of people thought that the clunkiness of this gun was relatively unattractive. It also used proprietary magazines. I'm not sure how much of a deal breaker that was, because I remember magazines for this gun being still relatively inexpensive, and you can still find them today. Again, the trigger is nothing to write home about, and the sights are god-awful, I would say. God-awful? Yeah, god-awful sights. They're terrible. So if we were gonna remix the P89 and we'd bring it back, we would do probably something similar to what Ruger did with the P345, except not make it in 45 to begin with. For some reason, Ruger introduced it in 45 ACP, and it was doomed from the get-go. But I like the look. It's slimmer, it looks good, it's got a polymer frame, which I don't think is essential. I mean, there is still a market for metal frame handguns. Also, guys, Harry Tasker, True Lies. This was obviously the gun of the CIA back when that movie came out. Also, I would remix the reintroduced P89 to use flush fit 17 or 18+1 magazines. Another thing that might work is to use either SIG 226 magazines or Beretta magazines. So check this out. I've got my SIG 226 right here, and I've got, interestingly, not a SIG 226 magazine. This is a Beretta 92 magazine, and in fact, I think a Beretta 92 magazine will function in a SIG P226. You just have to put the mag release cut somewhere else on the mag body, and lo and behold, it fits perfectly into the Ruger P Series. It takes a little doing to get it out, but that said, I think that you could use a magazine that's already out there, and that would have a little bit more compatibility, like something from the Beretta 92 or the SIG 226, and that would be a really cool feature. Gotta have better sights, because those were terrible, and you know what wouldn't hurt? A little Ameriflage. Look at this. I know that this is, guys, believe it or not, I actually did this myself here in my backyard. I used this European chemical on it that I found. It was really nice stuff. I think it's Crillon is how you pronounce it. So I did that in my backyard, made a video about it last 4th of July. If you want to see how to take your Ruger P Series and make it look gorgeous like this. For the number 2, I want to see the HK 3353-93 series come back. What are those guns? Do you know what the H&K G3 is? Do you know the HK91 or the PTR91 made by PTR Industries? The G3, the HK91 are essentially the guns that propelled H&K's reputation for making roller delayed blowback guns into the stratosphere. And what they did, they simply took that gun, an already successful design, they scaled it down a little bit, and they made the HK 3353-93 series in 223/556. These guns perform perfectly, and they're much milder than the G3 or the HK91 to shoot. And in my personal opinion, I'm not an engineer, I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to roller delay blowback guns, but in my mind, at least from the shooting experience, the 223/556 kind of lends itself to the roller delay blowback system a little bit better than the stouter 308 or 7.62 NATO does. God, and you got some sweet combos, like the standard HK93 or HK33 is like a 15 point something inch barrel. Call it a 16-inch barrel, and it looks cool. I mean, it looks like a scaled down HK91. Then you've got the HK53, which is basically classified as a submachine gun. It's virtually the same size as an H&K MP5. It looks cool as shit, and this thing barks fire with an 8.3-inch barrel and a collapsible stock. My favorite would be the HK33K, which was like the in-between. 13-inch barrel, which is a great length, especially if you're going to use it suppressed for 5.56 223. It had a collapsing stock. It was just sexy. It was proportionately, aesthetically done perfectly. These guns were so reliable that they were allegedly used by SEAL teams in Vietnam because they were more reliable than the early M16s and because they came with equally reliable 40-round magazines. There are several advantages that the HK93, 33, whatever series has over the AR-15 and the M4. That is the fluted chamber that we already talked about with the P7, making extraction a little bit more reliable. Use a folding or completely collapsing stock, unlike with the AR-15 or the M4. Those guns have to use buffer tubes, whereas the recoil assembly is inside the receiver of the HK guns, so you can use a folding stock. Cold hammer forged barrels that are probably going to outlast the guns themselves. They all have free-floating barrels, and then they've got the superior German diopter sights. What's also cool is you have some HK MP5, HK91, G3 furniture and accessory compatibility with the HK93. Cons, they didn't import a whole ton of these into the US, only around 18,000. So it's not uncommon to see one of these go for like 10 grand depending on the condition. They're also kind of heavy. They're about a pound heavier than the AR-15 or M4. No Picatinny rail, no optic rail along the top. All you have is like the Stanag claw mount that nobody uses anymore. So the remix version, man, I'd be totally happy if they just reintroduced it. Some people might be clamoring for the HK41, and without getting bogged down in that failure of a gun, the HK41 accepted NATO Stanag AR-15 magazines. Sounds cool in theory, but apparently it didn't work out so well, and it just doesn't look as good. It looks wrong. So I'd be cool with HK just doing like they did with the SP5, like just come out with it. Just sell it to us. I mean, you guys know you're going to be able to get like $2,500 or $3 grand for it, and they cost $599 back in the 80s when you were still selling them to civilians. So you're going to make a tidy profit, and we're going to let you do it. Step on us, Daddy. HK Daddy, go ahead. Just charge me $3 grand for it. I'll pay it. It would be nicer to have an accessory rail on top or an optics rail on top, a standardized one, which is like what PTR does with their HK clones. And it would be nice to get it in 300 blackout. I think that'd be kind of cool. And you know who keeps threatening to do that is Zenith.
Guys, coming down the pipe, I'm really excited about this. I've run a lot of rounds to it this year. 300 blackout's coming. It's going to start off first in the 16-inch barrel. Then we will move into the short barreled version so that people that want to do the 300 blackout in the SBR. What is really nice about the 300 blackout in the 16-inch version is that it will come with 2 springs so that you can shoot standard 300 blackout. You change out to do a quick spring change in the gun, and then you're running subsonic rounds. It's been a lot of testing, a lot of work with it, and we're really excited about it.
So my number one, I really do want to see this gun come out. It's kind of a weird off-the-wall choice, but just hear me out on this. Somebody's got to make one of these. Like, the patent's got to be expired. These things came out in the early 1980s. So I would think somebody would be able to clone one of these, and I don't think that would be hard because this gun itself was actually like a mishmash of the AK, the AR-15. I know all my soul men out there. Did you like that? That dad joke, little homophonic pun there. All my soul men out there know I'm talking about the Daywood K Series of rifles. So the Daywood K Series 5.56/223 combat rifle made by the South Koreans. The South Koreans originally were manufacturing M16s under license, but apparently it was cost prohibitive, super expensive, and they couldn't turn out enough of them. So their leader at the time was like, you know what, we're good enough, we're smart enough, and doggone it, people like us, we can do this. We can make our own independent battle rifle that we can source all here. So who makes it but Daywood? Yes, that Daywood, the car company Daywood. They make cars, they make guns. If they make light beer, then I'm just gonna quit my job and work for them. This gun is truly an AR-AK hybrid. It has some parts interchangeability with the AR-15. I think it uses the same bolt as the AR-15. It uses basically the same carrier. And when I say that this gun looked like an AK and an AR, I mean that almost literally, because if look at this, the bolt carrier group, you can see it looks like an AR-15 bolt carrier sitting underneath an AK long stroke piston. So essentially you had the mating of the AKM long stroke piston system with the AR-15's bolt and bolt carrier group. And because it's 223-556, the same ammo as the M4 M16, it even takes M4 M16 magazines, Stanag mags. Fire control group, all similar. The bolt release, almost identical. The barrels, very similar. I used to own the civilian version, the DR200, and this thing can rock and roll, man. I mean, it's pretty lightweight. They use aluminum steel construction, just like with the AR-15. Very light recoiling, reasonably accurate. Not famed for its accuracy, but it was combat accurate. AK accurate, good enough. Like the AK, the recoil assembly is inside of the receiver, so you could put collapsing or folding stocks on it, unlike the AR, so it had a little bit of a leg up there. Many people would say that the long stroke piston system was going to be superior to the AR-15's direct impingement system. That, of course, is up for debate, but there's no question that the AKM's long stroke piston that the Daywood borrowed is considered one of the most reliable and durable operating systems out there. Because of the partial aluminum construction, like an AR-15, it weighs 7 pounds, like an AR-15, so it's relatively lightweight too. So how are we going to remix the Daywood whenever somebody out there decides to start making them because the patents run out on these things? We're going to remix it by improving the accuracy by using a free floating barrel. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this company, Stormworks, but they're like the crazy mad scientists of Daywoods and other like semi-obscure platforms. So they make a free-floating handguard for the Daywood, and that would actually be a perfect improvement on our remixed Daywood K Series. It'd also be neat if you could maybe introduce a little bit more parts compatibility. Like I think the fire control group I think is similar, but I'm not sure it's one-to-one. Like you can just swap an AR trigger group with a Daywood. If you could do that, and you may be able to for all I know, like I said, there are Daywood guys that are out there, and I hope you guys are in the comments. Feel free to jump in and educate all of us, including myself. But I would like to see a little bit more parts compatibility between the guns. I'd like to see a standardized twist rate. I mean, it's like these guys couldn't make up their minds in terms of twist rate for the DR series and the K series. I don't know which ones are 1 in 7 twists. I don't know which ones are as slow as, like, I think they made like 1 in 12 twists. So they hit everything in between too. So kind of weird. Stick to a standard like 1 in 7 or 1 in 8, maybe even 1 in 9, and we're good to go. Did the auto-tune feature work? I was supposed to be auto-tuned throughout that whole video. I thought it was gonna add like a cool little effect since we're doing remixes. Guys, thanks a ton for watching. You're good sports. Thanks for putting up with me. Thank you, of course, to our Patreon sponsors, Patreon and Subscribestar. You guys, you're eligible to win one of 3 guns a month. We give away 1 gun for every 500 subscribers or supporters that we have on Subscribestar, and on Patreon, 1 gun for every 500 people. So you're automatically entered if you're at the $5 or the $10 level. Everybody else has got to enter manually. These giveaways are not associated or affiliated with YouTube in any way. We, of course, have to say that. Thanks as usual to Ventura Munitions, the best ammo store in the world. Thank you to Top Gun Supply, your online shooting sports superstore. And thanks to the big studs at Blue Alpha Gear, the best shooting belts you can get. But most of all, thank you. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys watching our videos. Leave a comment. What gun do you want to see resurrected and remixed? What's your remix? Tell me what you want done to it, guys. Thanks a ton for watching. See you next week.